Okay, in this video, I wanted to actually start to work some examples off your homework pages. I'm thinking the videos that I sent you to watch um, in preparation for these worksheets might not be enough to actually prepare you. So I'm going to go with a little bit of instruction just to express what they're talking about. And then I'm going to actually work some examples off both of the worksheets on this first section, just to kind of help out. And if you got it done, you can check them to make sure you're doing them right. So ultimately, then we can get this first assignment turned in the books. Okay, so this section looks at, we're going to look at several things here in this last chapter that I wanted to cover. But ultimately, what I wanted to do is just look at some topics related to things that you're going to have to do more of later on. Okay, so the section is on ratios, unit rates, and proportions. And just for, first of all, just recall a ratio is another name for a fraction, and that fraction actually comes from comparing two quantities. Now, those quantities must have the same units. That's very important. Now, they do on the examples, so that isn't an issue, but it's something to recall if you end up with other problems like this. So they must have the same units. So if you have A to B written like that, okay, most of the time we'll use the notation A over B so that we can write the ratio. Both of them are valid forms, but we like to use the one on the right using the fraction bar because it also gives us a means by which we can simplify. And that is the first part of this homework, is being able to simplify a series of ratios. Okay. Now, recognize that the units, because they're the same, will cancel out. So all we're left with is some number, that's some fraction that's been reduced. Okay. Now, the second part, the bottom part of this part, talks about unit rates. Now, with a ratio, you cannot have decimals in either part of the fraction. Okay, so we want to have those to be whole numbers. Okay, with a unit rate, however, what we're literally going to do is we're going to divide. Once we've got A over B, we're going to divide so that our new denominator is going to be 1. Okay, so it has to be a 1. And then whatever is on top, which could be a whole number, could be a decimal, okay, then is going to become our unit rate, our rate per 1. Okay, that's what unit means, 1. Okay, so we have a ratio with the denominator of 1. Okay, so those are the two things you're being asked to do here. So I have a couple problems I have picked out. Okay, number 4 says I want to compare 25 cups to 55 cups. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a fraction out of those two numbers, 54, excuse me, 25 out of 55, and then I'm going to reduce. Now you can use your calculator to reduce these down. You can do them by hand. None of these numbers get real big. But remember, to reduce a fraction, you divide out the greatest common factor. So the biggest number that goes into both 25 and 55 is 5. If you divide a 5 out of the top, 25 divided by 5 is 5. 55 divided by 5 is 11. So you get 5/11ths as your final answer. Okay? But make sure there's nothing left that will still come out after you get done. Number 7, start out by creating the fraction 30 over 60. Okay? And I can see a 10 goes in there, a 3 goes in there, etc. 15 goes in there, but the greatest common factor is actually 30. So 30 divided by 30 is 1, okay? And 60 divided by 30 is 2. Now again, notice none of these have labels. They will not have labels. The labels will cancel out, okay? So there's the first 8 problems. On the bottom problems, okay, there's a couple things I noticed as I looked over these examples, okay? Some of them can be kind of reversed so that they make more sense, okay? So on number 9, for example, if I know that 10 batteries cost $17, okay, what I want to know is what is the cost per battery? That would be the unit rate, not the battery per cost. So in this one, to actually do this correctly, okay, if I want to know the cost per battery, then I want to start out by taking the rate 17 over 10. So I actually have to reverse the two numbers in this case, okay? And then when I divide those out, okay, this will have a label on it. 17 divided by 10 becomes 1.7, okay? And I guess you'd say dollars per battery. Okay. On number 11, same idea. Okay. When you're comparing miles and gallons, we typically find miles per gallon. Okay, so that one's going to be okay. I'm going to write that one as 145 over 6. Okay, there's your rate. You do not need to reduce the rates down. It doesn't tell you to, so I'm not going to expect you to. And then just divide those. 145 divided by 6. And it says if it doesn't work out exactly, it says round to the nearest hundredths place. That's 2 decimal places. So I'm going to call that 24.17. And that would be miles per gallon. Okay. And then lastly, on number 15, here's again, just like number 9, when you see that word cost in there, okay, again, think about what this said. 5 calculators cost $130. So I don't want calculator per cost. I want cost per calculator. Find that item, okay, that you've got, and then divide it by the cost that you're given, okay? So on number 14, for example, if you have dollars and you have cans of tuna, okay, I want to know what's the dollar per can. Okay, but on this one, I want to know what's the dollar per calculator. Okay, so on 15, I'm going to put that as 130 over 5. Divide those out, and I get $26 per calculator. Okay, so there's the first page. Problem should look something like that. Answer should look like something like that. Okay, the second part of this first assignment is on proportions. And you should have done something along the lines about with proportions already. I can't remember if we have in this class, but proportions are when we take 2 ratios and set them equal. So when they're equal, here's ratio number 1. Here's ratio number 2. It gives us a tool on which we can use to find missing components from either ratio. Okay, so there's what a proportion looks like. Specifically, in fraction form, if A over B is my first ratio and C over D is my second, it looks something like that. And that's how you're going to see the problems on this worksheet today, is they're going to be written in fraction form. Now, there are several properties that we'll talk about in in geometry, for example, but right now we're interested in one property. Okay, if you were to solve that equation for any of the missing variables, okay, what's true is this. Okay, the cross products are equal. So that means that multiplying a product is when you multiply. So if I multiply across diagonally, okay, I have to get the same result. So this diagonal product, A times D, has to equal this diagonal product, B times C. Okay, now again, with the exercises, what they're going to do is they're going to stick a variable in one of those 4 spots. So when you take the cross products, you're going to get an equation. And then to finish the equation, then just divide off the number attached to that variable. Okay, so let's look at a couple of these. And some of the algebra, it's going to grow in difficulty as you go through. Okay, so if I look at, for example, number 5, let's start there. That's the last of the simple ones here. When I multiply cross products on number 5, I get 4 times x equals 24. Okay, now divide both sides by 4. And we can say then that x equals 6. There's your answer. Okay, now there will be some where you're going to get an answer that doesn't work out evenly. Okay, just leave your answer as a fraction. Just leave it as a fraction. Make sure it's reduced down, but just leave your answer as a fraction. Don't convert it to a decimal because it might be a repeating decimal. Okay, let's go down to the bottom of the page, number 10. Now you see that one of the expressions now has a binomial. So when I multiply here, 4 times 6 is 24. And then 9 times r minus 3 is my other cross product. Okay. And I need to, because of the parentheses and the monomial out in front, I need to distribute. So that becomes 9r minus 27. Now, add the 27 over. And those drop out. You get 9r and 51. Divide both sides by 9. And this is one like I was talking about. That does not come out evenly. So I'm just going to write that r equals 51 over 9. Okay. I want to see your work. Do the work right there with those. I want to see what you're doing and how you're doing it. Okay. On the back side, they're going to go from just one binomial and one variable to 2. Okay. So the algebra gets a little bit more involved. But again, we've done problems like this. So number 15. Okay. I want to take 10 times x minus 3. There's my first cross product. and 9 times x. When I distribute, I get 10x minus 30 equals 9x. Okay, bring the x's together. So I'm going to subtract 9x and bring it over here. So x minus 30 equals 0. Move the 30 to the other side. So x equals 30. There's your answer. Again, show your work. I want to see all that stuff. Okay. And then lastly, number 20. Again, cross products, 2 times n minus 6 equals 9 times n minus 7. Take the cross products. You get 2n minus 12 and 9n minus 63. I'm going to subtract the 2n and bring it over to the right. So negative 12 equals 7n minus 63. Now I'm going to take that 63 and move it over to the left. So 7n, move it up where you can see. And you get 51 out of this. Okay, again, still doesn't work out evenly. So I'm just going to divide the 7 over so that those drop out. And then I get 51 over 7 as my final answer. Okay, so, you're going to have a bunch that work out. You're going to have a bunch that don't. Again, it's the process that I consider to be important at this point, and that's why I need to see your work on those. This worksheet that contains the rates, unit rates, and proportions, this one I expect, if you haven't already turned it in, I would expect to see this by this Friday, I think, which is the 17th. Okay, Friday, April 17th. So the next one I'm going to work on is the one on percentages. I'm going to show you some examples, do a quick description there, and then I don't need to see that one until next week. Okay, which would be 17 and 7 be the 24th. Okay, so hope this helps. Email me if you're still struggling a little bit, and I'll try to do some more. Otherwise, like I said, communicate with me. I need to know who's out there and who's getting some stuff done, and get that stuff in when you get it completed. There's a Dropbox when on Friday when they have the pickup dates here, pickup drop off, 10 to 2 on Friday. Make sure it goes not in the folders, okay, that have your name on it, but put it in the box to the side that says Mr. B's drop off. Okay, that's where it needs to go so that I can work on and get it graded. Okay, thank you.